I'm joined by old friend of the show, Bill Scher. He is a senior writer for the Campaign for America's Future, also a columnist for The Week. And of course, Bill, last week we talked about the piece you had in The Week where you outlined that in the midst of all of the apoplexy over the Obamacare website not working properly, there are actually a number of programs. You actually talk about five over time, including the Peace Corps, Medicare, Medicare Part D, Social Security, that did not exactly have the smoothest rollouts, but still are considered working programs today. What's been the feedback that you got from the right on the article?
Well, the right, certainly is looking at me and others as folks trying to put our heads in the sand. And, my good friend Matt Lewis, who's a conservative columnist for the Daily Caller, we do a weekly online show at bloggingheads.tv. He took me to task in a dueling the week column where he's praising Ezra Klein for saying this liberal journalists like Ezra Klein should be pounding on Obamacare, and people like Bill Scher and Joan Walsh at Salon are trying to look away from the truth and be intellectually dishonest. And I don't think that that's fair. I don't think Ezra is being dishonest, but I do think he is putting an alarmist spin on some actual facts that aren't necessarily going to bear out. I mean, there's more than one way to look at a set of facts, and particularly when you look at the history of it, you look at especially with Social Security. They had a just John Doe problem where the employers weren't giving the proper wage data and not even including Social Security numbers. And so you had millions of records that lacked basic information. Panic ensued that people were going to get their checks, which is very similar to what's going on right now. And it was a problem, but they dealt with it. And that's usually what happens with these kinds of screw-ups is that they get fixed. And so I think it's worth putting things in a context. It doesn't mean that there's no problem. For all I know, this is the biggest screw-up of all governmental history, and it's going to be a giant disaster. But I don't know that, and Ezra doesn't know that. So the right's trying to crow right now and say, look at these liberals trying to look away from reality because conservatives have that kind of problem a lot, and people like Matt Lewis have been trying to get conservatives to understand that. I don't think the leftists have the same kind of problem here. I think we're having an open discussion about the situation and just asking for more tempered reporting, not dishonest reporting, but putting things in proper context.
Right. For a while, I was getting a lot of emails saying with complaints about the website. And then once I contextualized it in part with your article, the emails changed and said, hold on a second, who's just complaining about the website? We should be focusing on the real problems about Obamacare, which is really kind of what I've been trying to do from the beginning. So the kind of the mood certainly has shifted. The other thing that I've been having some conversations with conservatives about, including Rush Limbaugh's former producer, C. Edmund Wright, a couple of weeks ago, is he said, David, you know that the reason you like this program, the Affordable Care Act, is because you see it as being one step closer to single payer. And I actually said to him, you know what? I would be totally upfront if that were the case, because I would love that to be the case. However, I think that the Affordable Care Act is further ingraining the for-profit healthcare system. It's giving up to 30 million more customers to for-profit insurers. I wish I could say it was a step closer to single payer. I don't think that it is at all. Where do you fall on that?
Well, another one of my Campaign for America's Future colleagues, Richard Eskow, didn't agree with my take on Obamacare and the website. He looked at it as this problem with the website is indicative of the compromises with the insurance lobby and the drug lobby that are hampering Obamacare. Therefore, we should be using this as an example to make an argument for a Medicare for all single payer type system. And I understand the logic there. I think there are I'm not opposed to single payer per se. I don't think it is a practical step to take right now because the transition involved is just politically Herculean. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think what we have with Obamacare is going to do the job. But your point is correct. What's the website hiccups are separate debates from the policy. I mean, you may not like the policy. You may not like the compromises that were done with the insurance industry and the drug industry and would prefer a different system. But I would not conflate the website with that. The website problems will likely get fixed, and you could still not like the policy. And there are Republicans saying that too. John Kasich, governor of Ohio, was saying that on Meet the Press this week. But I think there's a bit of a disconnect with the Kasich Republican crowd, which is if you didn't think the federal government was going to do a good job running the exchanges, you could have run them yourself under the law as it's written, because it's a state-based law in many respects. There's all sorts of ways we could be experimenting at the state level, seeing what things work best, and letting the cream rise to the top if there wasn't so much sabotage going on the conservative side of the coin.
Is there a sense in your mind that the fervor right now over doing anything possible to kind of throw monkey wrenches into the implementation of the Affordable Care Act is because conservatives must, on some level, realize that the window for pushing public opinion against the Affordable Care Act is shrinking, because once it's fully implemented properly, you're not really going to be able to convince Americans that it was a really bad idea. In other words, there will be success stories and there will be some failure stories of people whose premiums will go up or whatever the case may be, but that once this is fully implemented, there's really going to be no going back, because overall Americans aren't going to hate it.
Well, if you presume people are going to like it, I think that's correct. I mean, if you were conservative and you thought it was a bad law and everybody's going to hate it, you would just let people hate it.
Exactly.
And then you'd have a great election in 2014 or 2016, and you'd tear the whole thing up. You only get panicked about it if you're worried people are going to like it once it is implemented. And I think that's what most people expect. And this is true for the single-payer folks also. I mean, if you think people are going to hate it because of the compromises, you can let it go bad and make those arguments in proper sequence. But I think if you're going to be a good faith, participant in our democracy, understand that we had a fight about it. One side won the day. We have this law. You try to make it work. Look, I did not like Clinton's welfare reform. I thought it was a bad idea. I thought it was going to let people fall through the cracks. And, and on some degree that's been borne out. But you didn't see Democrats over the last 10 years trying to stop the law. You tried your best to make the law work and help as many poor people as you could. And then you look at it 10 years later and see what there is to fix. There are 3 governors right now, 3 Republican governors who do have their own exchanges. There are a few pockets of sanity out there where people said, you know what? The law is the law. Let's try to make it work. And maybe I'll prove that Republicans do it better if I do this really well. And you got a few more governors on top of that, like Kasich in Ohio, that said, okay, I'm going to bash Obamacare to keep the base happy, but I'm not going to turn my nose up at federal money to expand Medicaid because it's going to help people. And that's a beginning of a tacit acceptance that the law is the law. I think you're going to see more and more of that over time. You can only play the bitter end card for so long before you start to look ridiculous. As we know from this past shutdown, they're looking pretty ridiculous.
All right, Bill Scher, senior writer at Campaign for America's Future. Check out his column at The Week. Bill, great to have you back on. Thank you.
Great to talk to you. Take care.